Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Denny, also known as the Lawyering Dietitian, and we are here for social commentary with credentials, which I think is very appropriate for what we're going to talk about today. And I wanted to, the title, you already know why you're here. And so I did just want to preface my video by saying that I'm and by no means defending Cheyenne Bryant, but because I am someone who has several licenses and I'm proud of my licenses and I've earned them and I've worked for them, and I think it's strange for any professional to think that a license isn't necessary, and because I feel like you can still do the work. If you want to do good work in whatever you're doing and you want to help people, you can do that with a license. So we're going to get into that a little bit more, but a little bit about me. I am an attorney. I'm licensed in New York, New Jersey, and Illinois, but I only practice in New York. And I'm also a registered dietitian. I'm licensed in 8 states. So the way dietetics works is there are certain states that you can see clients in where you need to be licensed in that particular state. In other states, you just need to be licensed by the CDR to see clients. So the 8 states that I'm licensed in, I have to be, maybe except for one, I don't think you have to be licensed in New York, but you have to be licensed to see those people and to see clients in that state. And I'll get into this too. I don't want to forget it, so let me just say it now. What I think is interesting about this conversation is because with the, I've watched a lot of videos like in preparation for this video, and I see a lot of people saying like, oh, people are gonna like look for someone who's not licensed. I think that's weird. I don't know if that's now, and maybe I'm just not in the know, but there's no way that I would intentionally seek people who are not licensed. And the reason why I say that is because especially, well, for both my law degree and dietetics degree, and getting licensed in each of the states that I'm licensed in, like some states are like more like you just kind of submit an application, they do a little background check and that's it. Other states, I had to get fingerprinted. One, I feel like it was Maryland, that they said that they needed every transcript, every report card, my mama's blood type. They needed to know what my blood type was. They needed to know if I gave a kidney transplant before. They just needed like all of these things. And I was like, oh my God, they needed to know all of the other states that I was licensed in. If I had any disciplinary actions in those states, they needed to know. It was just like a lot. I know for Texas, I had to take a test. I had to take an exam on like their state specific dietitian laws. I didn't have to do that for Florida. Maybe I did. Like I said, I've done 8 of these, but Florida, I just had to get fingerprinted. I'm working now to get licensed in Pennsylvania. Apparently registered dietitians are mandated reporters in Pennsylvania. Learned that today. So I have to take a 3-hour child abuse and like safety course. So going back to the topic, I think it's weird to purposely seek out someone who's not licensed because we have to do things to get and maintain our license. Another example, I'm licensed in Oregon. Don't ask me why. And you have to renew every year. Every year I found out that you have to do 15 credits of CEUs or continuing education. I'm like, I ain't done no continuing education yet. I just started. So now before I can even apply, I have to get 15 credits. So I think to seek someone out, and don't get me wrong, I say that in jest, but because I like learning stuff, I'm like, okay, what's a topic that I keep seeing my clients, bringing up or, whatever. And like, that's something I can now educate myself on, get the credit and to, help myself renew for my license. So I enjoy learning new things. So someone who's not licensed, and the same thing with my law degree, every time when I'm, for New York and New Jersey, you have to pay to register to have an active license every year. And while I don't practice in New Jersey, there's no like inactive status that Illinois has. But because I I just wanted to be very clear. I'm a licensed, and I can practice if I wanted to do so tomorrow in each of those states. I just keep my license active. But, you know, I have to do continuing CLEs, continuing legal education for those states. So again, I think it's weird to purposely seek someone out who, forget the ethical piece, but like just the knowledge piece, to seek someone out who's not held to that same standard of just knowledge. Like, things change, there's new information, especially laws, you know, even in the nutrition field, like there's new studies that come out. And so to just not want to be educated is a little weird. Anyway, so that's a little background about me, hence the social commentary with credentials. Okay, so let's get into it. So if you're here, you've probably already like seen this video or heard it. I have not gotten my technology down pack yet, so we just gonna play it from the good old laptop. Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna play it and then like pause and stop when I want to make a comment. But let me make sure this is turned up for the girls and the guys and the days. And so yeah, that's what we're gonna do here. So this is the video by and I remember seeing this video when this first like exploded. She was the first video that I saw talk about, and I was like, she ate. Okay, so this is the video. So I'm gonna let it play, and then like I said, I'm gonna stop as we, you know, go along. I got my privacy screen on my thing, but yeah, so this video I'm playing from Dr. Martin's TikTok. All right. Oop, wait a minute. I told y'all the technology. All right.
And that's what people don't understand, right? So just to educate some folks a little bit. Hello, my name is Dr. Raquel Martin. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, professor of sciences, and podcast host who specializes in Black health and well-being. And I want to break down a clip from the Joe Budden podcast featuring someone who presents herself as Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. But before we dive in, I want to make something incredibly clear. Having a doctor does not mean someone is a licensed mental health professional. You can have a doctorate in literature and be unlicensed, and you are still a doctor. You can have a doctorate in education and hold an LPC, being a licensed professional counselor.
Sorry, y'all.
And you are a licensed mental health professional, and you are still a doctor, but your doctorate is not in psychology. When evaluating anyone's credentials, it's really critical to look at two things: what their doctorate is actually in, and whether they hold a relevant clinical license. In this case, the person you're about to hear from is unlicensed. I'm going to break down why that matters and why this particular message is harmful, especially to the Black community that she claims to be serving and that I actually serve.
Okay, so two things I wanted to point out. I think it's a very good point to say to look at someone's credentials. So when for my dietitian clients, I'm going to make it relatable, like I said, to the topic that I'm licensed in. I have clients who are like, you know, I saw someone on TikTok, like, can you just tell me what you think? I'm like, share all the information with me. I don't know everything. I don't, you know, purport to know everything. So I'm like, share information. And, you know, people may have some people that I'm like, oh, this person's dope. I would love to, you know, follow them in their content. And so I remember one time a client sent me somebody, and the first thing I looked up was like, does she have a degree? Yeah, that's the first thing. If they don't have a degree in, and then again, for dietetics specifically, if they are not a licensed dietitian, registered dietitian, nutritionist, whatever they call it in their particular state, if they're not on the CDR's, you know, website, if you can't search for them, I mean, yeah, they may be knowledgeable in something, but so there are certain professions that are regulated. And I think it's strange that she's been able, if she's not really, if she doesn't have a PhD, or we know she does not an MD, that she's been able to hold herself out as a doctor for so long. I think that it's unfortunate that some people can just have visibility and, like I said, know a little bit of information and then blow up, and then they're you know, spreading information, and not necessarily misinformation. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But like, they're spreading all this information, and it's just like, what are their credentials? So I think that's important too. I think also, like, when I have clients, I tell them, like, you can Google something on the internet, but it's the source. So, like, some resources that I tell clients to go to, and I like Healthline because those articles are either written by or, like, reviewed by an MD or an RDN. Healthline has, like, a lot of health articles. Any type of research-based database, I think, is good. Harvard Health, I think, is good, from any, like, school. Again, seeing who the author is, because I always do that. And So that I'm like, where are you getting your information from? So I know everyone's like, oh, you can't look on Google. I'm like, well, we're not walking around with encyclopedias. And if you're not in school, you may not have access to certain like research databases. So if you do use online, just see like where the information is coming from. That's what I usually tell my client. Okay, let's keep going.
License is really only needed so you can bill insurance.
That is incredibly misleading. Yes.
Again, I want to touch on this. Not particular to, because I never actually really understood the different levels of like, I know the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist can prescribe medication while a psychologist cannot. Correct me if anything has changed. So I always understood that, but I've heard people say, and maybe this is just the licensure that's different. I've never understood it. I never understood mental health counselor, therapist, I'll be honest, I never really understood that. So I will say, and Dr. Martin does go into this a little, more. However, I will say that the billing the insurance part, and this is also going to go into her like saying that she not being licensed gives her more access to more people is not true, because I purposely actually went back for my degree, which I had to do a degree. I was in school from June 2020 to June 2022, and I did it straight. Summer, spring, fall, I did it straight. And then I had to still do my dietetic internship. That was 1,000 hours that I had to do. And I still had to pass the test. But the reason why that I did that was because I wanted to have those credentials. I wanted to have the education. I wanted to have the training. So that's what I wanted. And so, but also, I also knew I couldn't bill insurance without it. So, and I think Dr. Martin's going to clarify this a little bit more. I don't think there's anything wrong with needing to be, like, having the ability to bill insurance. It's like if I have Venmo, Quick Pay, or Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, I could get money through insurance. I could get money through cash. I could get money this way. Like, I take all types of payment, So I think that's a little weird, and that rationale doesn't make sense. But
let's keep on. You do need a license to bill insurance, but that is not why licensure exists.
Agreed.
Licensure protects you. It means I have completed specific education and supervised clinical hours, passed rigorous exams, and I'm accountable to a regulatory board.
Yes.
If I breach confidentiality, if I cross ethical boundaries or harm you, you have somewhere to file a complaint and be sure that I'm held accountable.
True.
A license is not paperwork just for billing. It's a consumer protection. When someone drops or loses or no longer has a license, they're not solely avoiding the insurance hassle. They're also removing your recourse if something goes terribly wrong. Not binded by a BD.
Now, from a lawyer's perspective, I agree with her. But all professionals should have professional liability insurance, just saying. Because we are in a litigious society. I will say, though, that I don't know what her contracts are, like the terms of her contracts are that she may have with her clients. I don't know if there's something in there that does provide a recourse, but you still can sue somebody. Even if you just can't complain to a board, like you can still sue somebody. So if someone does actually harm you, I guess like if you can't violate HIPAA if you are not bound by HIPAA. Not that I guess you can't. So I understand that, but still, if someone harms you in some type of way, you still can take them to court. So that's the only thing I would tweak, is that there's still a recourse, but it would be a little bit more difficult because, again, you still would have to show how you were actually harmed. So I will say that.
Yes, the behavior board science, rules and regulations and ethics. And so it just opened up a whole nother, floor and industry for me.
And she's also saying this like it's a good thing. I want to state something really important. Ethics codes exist to protect you from exploitation and boundary violation.
I will say, too, when I was in law school, we had to take a separate ethics exam. I know I took it before the bar exam, or maybe I just did that scheduling wise, but you needed to pass both, at least in Illinois. I took the bar exam in 2014 and 2015, so I'm sure they didn't take that away. I just don't know how it works now. But I I remember they had courses, like practice questions, like things that you would not think are unethical. Baby, read the regulations. So to say that I'm not bound by that, and that's a good thing. That's also strange.
And providers practicing outside of their competence. When someone celebrates being free from ethical oversight, I want you to think of that as a red flag, a flashing one. It's a warning sign, because those rules exist because real harm happened.
How does it?
Oh Lord.
No longer practice under.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I thought I'm over here.
Right now I'm in private practice.
Oh my
So
God.
people understand, right? So just to educate some
Hold
folks
on,
a little
y'all.
bit.
One.
Okay,
It's a warning sign
we're
because
back.
those rules exist because real harm happens when they're not in place. So celebrating that you don't have to be accountable to that should be concerning to you. As a therapist, two things you can obviously make what you deserve, because therapy is real. We're giving everything we have in there, and we're unpacking shit, and we're helping you process through things. So it's not us sitting there with your an effective therapist saying, "Tell me more." You should be unpacking, and you should be able to take somebody and drive with them to their goal. And here's another thing: she keeps calling herself a therapist, and in most states, that's actually illegal without a license. You cannot.
So, two things. Reverse chronological order. Yes, it is true. And I made another video about this, which I will leave, especially if it's your first time here, which I'll leave in the description. But again, part of the reason why I went back to school to get my RD degree, or my degree in dietetics, foods and nutrition, is because all registered dietitians are nutritionists. All nutritionists are not registered dietitians. That is a regulated term that you cannot use unless you have gone to school to get the degree. And then now they recently changed it, or the requirement. So in order to even not sit for the test, in order to even be able to do your dietetic internship, or like some programs, they have you do the master's and the internship at the same time. I didn't have to do that because I finished like right when they were changing, and I already had my JD at the time. So you have to have a degree higher than a bachelor's to be able to do your dietetic, to do your internship and then sit for the exam. So now most people get like a master's in nutrition because it's related, and it's just usually easier. But as long as you have a higher degree, I don't know if that's changed actually since 2024 when they first changed it, but you just needed another degree other than a bachelor's to be able to proceed with your RD credentials. So yes. So if you know anyone who's saying that they are a registered dietitian, nutritionist, they are not on the CDR's website, you can't Google their name, then they lying. So I do think that that's problematic, because even in one of my RD groups, people were talking about now with AI and how, I guess there was like someone found some like AI page, so it's not a person, but it's an AI. I mean, there's a person behind the AI page, but like there's an AI page that postures themselves to be a registered dietitian. So we're like, how can you do that? So I do think it's disrespectful to the to the field. Not I know it is. It's disrespectful. It's illegal. She's not a therapist to keep referring to herself as one.
Legally
Use the title therapist or provide psychotherapy without licensure. What she's describing now is coaching, and coaching and therapy are fundamentally different. Coaches help with goals and accountability. Therapists are trained to diagnose and treat mental health conditions, trauma and depression and suicidality and psychosis. If someone with untreated bipolar disorder or PTSD thinks they're getting therapy from a coach, they're going to be seriously harmed. These are actual conditions that go undiagnosed and untreated, especially within the Black community. My clients, the truth is that in order to bill insurance, I have to diagnose you. And you only get about 6 weeks. In order for me to get 6 more weeks approval, guess what? This frames diagnosis as something imposed on you solely for insurance purposes.
Okay. So the only thing I wanted to say about this, again, I'm more so speaking from how this conversation, I feel, and I'm explaining how it spans across multiple professional fields. There's a problem with insurance. I'll say that. And it seems like what she's saying is kind of true, but kind of not true. But I know like in the RD fields, like registered dietitians, we don't diagnose conditions. But I can, and this is what I do with all my clients, I can take a lab result and say, hey, your, TSH is low, and then, either order through one of my jobs. I work for Nourish. If you want to work with me, the link is below. But say, hey, let's get additional testing done. They could do it through Nourish. They could do it through their doctor. Or, it's low, so let's do additional testing. And then, like, depending on what that testing is, then I'll say, okay, go back to your doctor because this could mean this. So we're not diagnosing someone with like hyper or hyperthyroidism, for example. But I do know that we can diagnose a nutrition diagnosis, which is malnutrition. So the issue with that, though, is that Medicare Part B restricts MNT, so medical nutrition therapy, coverage to specific diagnoses. If there's a documented diagnosis of malnutrition along with a physician referral, for example, then they can get certain services covered. So I will say that, the conversation has been, like, within our community, the RD community, like, okay, can we, we want to be able to service this client. Not to say that they would misdiagnose that client because there's specific criteria that would require for malnutrition. But I think it's just a thing where, like what Dr. Bryant is saying, in order to, for some clients, you may want to, maybe they don't have all of the criteria, only qualify as one, but maybe they're borderline, but like not exactly there. So then it's like, but we know that they would benefit from our services, but it's not going to be covered, right? So it's like, do you kind of push the envelope a little bit, or, so it's just, I understand what she's saying there. That's definitely more of an insurance issue. I'm not saying it's okay. Let me just be very clear about that. But I think in a lot of what she said, overall, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's ethical. I don't think it's correct. I don't think it makes sense. But I do see that there are some nuances to this conversation that is probably just broader, a broader conversation that needs to be had.
And that's backwards.
A diagnosis isn't a billing trick. It's clinically meaningful information that guides treatment. And the 6 weeks claim is also not accurate across the board.
And as I was editing this video, I didn't say this obviously while I was recording. This is what I'm saying about people knowing a little bit about something and then kind of running with it. With Dr. Martin saying, like, it's not entirely true across the board. That's what I'm saying. It's like she knows that there's a 6-week limitation. So now she's using that and she's running with it in her narrative. So it's just kind of like, that's why I feel like this conversation is so nuanced, because there are a few points to what she's saying, but overall the messaging is terrible and overall harmful and illogical.
I'm not saying that we should not be addressing insurance, because we need to rise up when it comes to insurance authorizations. Like, we very much do. That is a different video. But insurance authorizations vary widely by plan, diagnosis, and medical necessity. Many people receive months of years of covered therapy. And she's also making it sound like licensure forces short-term diagnosis-driven care. And that's just simply not how it works, as someone who is actually a licensed mental health professional. Majority of people who know that in order to bill insurance as a therapist or a physician or a psychologist, psychiatrist, you have to diagnose. So what do they rather do? Pay out of pocket.
So when I realized,
don't no one want to pay out of pocket for nothing. What? Girl. I work for Nourish. They have a $0 billing guarantee, which means that, let's say, you click the link below, we start working together. We get in 3 sessions, and then they hear back from your insurance and they're like, hey, so it's not covered. If you want to continue, it's like $175 a session. I don't remember how much it is. Or maybe they only cover part of it and they have like a copay, whatever. And let's say someone can't afford it, or they can't afford it, they don't want to pay, whatever the reason is. Then Nourish, they're like, okay, that's cool. We'll eat that, and but any sessions going forward you'd have to pay for. So I've had several clients who their insurance didn't cover Nourish, and or just, you know, dietetic services. So they got in a couple sessions, and then, you know, they just went about their way. So none of my clients pay like a copay or anything like that. I think I had one, but that was it. And the copay was $15. People don't want to pay out of pocket for nothing. If insurance can't cover it, then I may not get it. I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Is this covered by insurance? When I go get my physicals and all that stuff, is this test, if I don't need it? And I'm not saying people don't need therapy, but like people, they have that conversation. How much do I really need this? You know what I'm saying? Can I go a little whatever? If it's not covering, I don't really need it for real, I'm not doing it. That's a lie. People don't want to pay out of pocket for nothing, which is also why I wanted to be an RD so I could bill insurance. Because while everyone doesn't have insurance, those who do, they want the services that are covered by their insurance. Girl.
That I thought, well, okay, it may create a gap within our community, our Black community, who can't afford healthcare or afford mental health services. I hear the concern and the access problem is real. Her solution, unregulated, unlicensed coaching, isn't the answer. And Absolutely. There are a wealth of licensed Black therapists, he, she, and they, Black-owned practices, sliding scale clinics, community mental health centers doing this work with their licensure intact, keeping their credentials because their clients deserve protection. The solution to healthcare access gaps isn't removing safeguards. It's expanding access to regulated care. It's providing more scholarships for people like us to get the training necessary. It's more support group. It's actually mutual aid, but it's not what she is stating. In a private practice, I make much more money. It allows me to have more leverage and really be hands-on with my clients. I'm not binded by BBS, the Behavior Board, Science, Rules and Regulations and Ethics. And I want to be honest about what's really happening here, because the messaging is awful to me. The pitch to potential clients is, I can give you more personalized care. The pitch to herself is, I make significantly more money and I'm not bound by any kind of oversight. And those are two entirely different things. And when your financial incentive is disconnected from professional accountability, that is a conflict of interest. However, she is not bound by anything when it comes to conflicts of interest, because the only thing that she is bound by is the limits of her own ethics and morality. Look, coaching has real value, and y'all know I be hold real coaches down. If you want goal accountability, a coach can help, but coaching is not therapy, and no coach worth their salt will say anything other. If you're dealing with mental health like anxiety and depression and trauma, and I agree.
I have clients who, I think I said this earlier, don't remember. I have clients where I'm like, do you have a therapist? Because, you know, you can talk to me. I will listen. I will, you know, do what I can, but I am not a therapist. I stand by that. Because obviously I'm not. But it's like, sometimes some people just need someone to talk to, and then sometimes people need help. Like, people are going through some real stuff. So yeah, I don't think that therapy and nutrition are disconnected, or like, you know, my nutrition services are disconnected at all. Because if you are having mental health issues, you know, where you are binge eating, right? Like, we can kind of talk about that, but like, you know, maybe there's something mentally that's going on that you can't stop, like, eating. And there are RDs, for example, who kind of specialize in that, like eating disorder. I still think that some type of therapy is beneficial. So I definitely agree with what she's saying.
These other things, you deserve a licensed mental health professional whose conduct is subject to oversight. And I know it sounds like gatekeeping, but it's truly basic safety. And it's important in communities where access has been denied historically. The answer has never been fewer protections for us as Black people. It has always been more access to regulated, accountable care, because we deserve that. And I also want to address that it took me some time to think about doing this video, because as a Black woman, it's just been really, really tough for us as Black women. And as someone who states that they advocate for the Black community, he, she, and they creates programs for the Black community, is the founder of the largest mental health and education community for Black women in the country. I totally understand where we're at when I'm holding my programs and things of that nature. But I do want you to know that I always state that my Black love is also accountability. And being Black does not mean that when I'm dealing with other Black people, I'm pro-Blackness no matter what you do. That's just never going to be the case. So I don't want you to, I don't want to hear anything about like, oh, this is an attack on a Black woman. It's not solely, it was the aspect of supporting Black people was never about supporting just Black people no matter what they do. It's supporting Black people in love and also having accountability. And these messages are wrong, and they have been wrong, and they have consistently been wrong. And and as someone who has the size of a platform that I have, I think it's important for me to share psychoeducation and information, because I understand the significance of it. And I understand the significance of it because I'm actually working in this field. This is a really harmful message. And I do understand that there's this aspect of like things are entertainment, but these things are harming us. And I know they harm us because I'm actually working in the field. I am a doctor who creates content, but I do want to state that when I say the titles in the beginning of my video, I'm actively doing that work. I'm actively conducting research on Black identity development and mental health and well-being of the Black community. I am actively practicing as a licensed clinical psychologist and see patients weekly and have been seeing patients for over a decade. I am actively a professor and working with youth. I am actively a health educator when it comes to training clinicians in cultural humility so that they can serve us better. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of individuals will say it's not that deep or say that it's just entertainment is because, one, you think mental health in psychology is just folk wisdom, and it's not, it's a science. And two, you guys are very insulated from the field that you claim to be discussing because you don't work in that field and you haven't in quite some time. But as someone who walks into the offices and sees the clients and goes to the talks and does the community programs, we are struggling. And these little entertainment only pieces that are spreading misinformation, you're doing more harm for the Black community than you know. And the reason why you don't know is because you're so insulated from the Black community. You just sit in front of these mics and you make all these money and you do all these Patreons and you wear these crazy hats and you do all that. But I would actually say I don't see these kind of places as pro-Black. I don't. And the only way you would know that is if you did the work that I do. And you're never going to, because one, you're not qualified. And two, it would break you down. It would break you down. Every single day. I never heard so many people saying licenses and degrees didn't matter until more Black people started getting licenses and degrees. No longer.
So that was the video, child. I guess the last thing I want to say, and I've been meaning to, I'm just thinking about how I want to do it, make a video about this too, is how I agree that when it comes to, and I do need to make a whole video about this, when it comes to nutrition, like related topics and conversations, I do feel like, to her point, that there is a lot of harmful messaging that is being put out there. And when I have clients come, they're so confused. They are like, Denny, I heard I'm supposed to do this. I don't know. I tried doing this, but I don't know. Is this good? Can I have this? Can I have, and it's just like, we take the time. Our sessions are 55 minutes each one. So I definitely take the time to like go over their needs and their questions and their concerns so we can come up with a solution that works for them. But it's just like there's so much information out there from people who are not professionals, who don't have the credentials. And again, maybe they may be right about a little something, or they may know this. But working with these clients, to her point, I work with them daily. I have 5 clients tomorrow. And I'm just like, they really are confused about so much information that's out there, and not all of it's coming from professionals. And so I think people can have varying opinions with like, someone who's vegan may not, recommend a meal, like a vegan RD, may not recommend meat to a client. I think that's still wrong, because I think everything should be client specific. But if they truly believe that meat is bad for you and all this other stuff, then, I could see how there's the nuances and like the way that we do things. But again, at least they have a RD who's vegan, who promotes like a vegan lifestyle, at least has some type of nutrition education, credentialing, and training, and whatever research they have to support their position, versus just being like, I don't think you should eat meat because A, B, and C, without knowing, the medical history of that client. Are they anemic anyway? Like, you can't just, and that's why I also too get a little frustrated with like personal trainers who like do meal plans and like nutrition coaches. And don't get me wrong, I'm a certified nutrition coach as well. But I remember when I first took that exam, I was in school. I didn't even take the course. I was like, let me just see if I can pass the test. But it was from what I was learning from my nutrition education. And I did. I took it and I was like, okay, let me see what I know. And, obviously I knew enough to pass. So it's like, that just showed me that what I was learning in school was enough, to even pass the course without even looking at it. So it's like that's the type of knowledge that I had. And I didn't even have my degree yet. I was still in school. So it's just like, you have people with a little bit of, like I said, people know a little bit about something, and then they go online, get the right platform, get the right people to spend the money, and they making money with just a little bit of information. That's it. So, but let me know what y'all think in the comments. If y'all made it this far, thank you. Period. Be sure to share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.
Literally, as I had finished editing and was about to upload this video, I saw that Cheyenne Bryant went on the Breakfast Club. So I was like, oh, Lord, like, now I got to watch this video before, and make any final edits. And it was so funny because I was watching it. I had to rewind it a couple times because I was like, what is she talking about? And then she said she applied to be a professor at a law school. And I was like, skirt? I went to law school many years ago. However, I'm like, I don't think I ever had a professor who was not an attorney. So I was like, she was going to apply to teach at a law school? No law degree and allegedly no doctorate? I don't know, child, but this video sums it up. If you have not seen it already, buckle in, get your cackles in, and I'll see y'all in the next video.
Let me tell you porch monkeys something. You darkies, you jigaboos, you'll never understand, because as a psychology expert with licensure, but I don't have the licensure because you only need that to diagnose. And I went to the university, and then I was applying to be a professor at the law school as a PhD holder, my doctoral. Now, as I was getting my doctoral, I came back around. I didn't have the transcripts, but the dissertation. And then at that time, I said therapy. And see, what you don't understand is you don't have to have licensure as a therapist for diagnoses, because I'm a life coach. And as a psychology expert, what some people are never going to understand about me is when I came back to do that doctoral, and the doctoral of it all, the summation at the end of the day, jigaboos ain't going to never understand.